I was halfway through my first mug of coffee that morning when I saw it. Obnoxious neon orange paper flapping against my grandfather's old aluminum boat like a slap in the face, taped there with military waterproof adhesive like it was sealing off a crime scene. I stood on the dock barefoot, the wooden planks still damp with morning dew, looking at the word violation in bold black letters. And for a second I thought it was some prank until I realized it wasn't just some paper. It was a statement. It claimed I was breaking community guidelines by keeping my boat on shared community water. They gave me 48 hours to move it or they'd have it towed and fine me $500 a day. I laughed at first until I read who signed. Richard Wilkins, president of the Maple Creek Estates. HOA. That's when the laugh died in my throat because suddenly I wasn't reading a warning. I was staring down the barrel of arrogance so big it forgot to check whose property it was trying to police. If you've ever been blindsided by some HOA or city office telling you what you can and can't do on your own land, this story is your blueprint for how to fight back. Not with rage, but with truth, strategy, and one hell of a righteous take on. And if you've never had it happen, pay close attention because one day it just might. There's something sacred about memory, especially when it's tied to a place. And for me that place was Sullivan Lake. My grandfather used to say the water could hear you, that if you respected it, it did never betray you. And he lived by that creed every single day of his life. He bought the land in 1953 when nobody else saw the value in 50 acres of silence and built the cabin with his bare hands, plank by plank, fishing rod always within reach. Summers were magic there. No Wi-Fi, no TV, just the smell of pine, the call of loons, and me learning to bait hooks while Grandpa told stories about fighting off mining companies who tried to poison the lake. Water is life, he'd say, voice rough like gravel but warm like firelight. You don't sell it, you protect it. That boat they just slapped a sticker on. It was the same one he used to pull me around the lake and letting me take the rudder even when I could barely steer straight. I didn't just inherit a property. I inherited a legacy. And the second I saw that violation notice, I knew this wasn't about a boat. It was about memory, blood, respect, and I wasn't about to let some smug HOA suits rewrite my family's story. 6 months before that orange paper showed up, I'd walked away from a life most people would kill for. Multi-million-dollar buyout, Silicon Valley office with glass walls, my name in Wired magazine. I was burned out, 40, rich on paper but poor in peace. And I remembered that lake like a dream you can almost taste. So I left, just walked away. Had the cabin renovated, kept its old soul, added plumbing that didn't sound like a dying moose, and moved in with nothing but boxes and the kind of silence you can only get from a place that's been waiting for you. Mornings were slow. Afternoons spent fixing up the dock or repainting the porch. Evenings fishing in that old boat. Just me and the water. And the echo of my grandfather's voice reminding me that I was finally exactly where I was meant to be. That peace, the kind money can't buy and cities can't offer, was stolen the moment that HOA letter arrived. But that's the thing about peace. Once you've had it, you'll fight like hell to keep it. When I called my neighbor Ree to ask about the letter, he chuckled like he'd been expecting the call. They finally found you, huh? He said, voice weathered and warm like split firewood. Ray was in his 70s, built his home down the shore decades ago, and he'd known my grandfather personally. He wasn't just a neighbor, he was history. They've been getting worse every year, he said. Ever since that development went up on the north side, they think they own everything within 5 miles. When I told him they said my boat didn't meet visual standards, He barked a laugh and said, "Your grandfather would have introduced that HOA president to a shotgun full of rock salt. He told me they'd even tried to hassle him once about his boathouse. He told them where to shove their violation and never heard back. They don't want to fight," he said. "They want people who don't know better." That's when I realized this wasn't a mistake. This was a strategy, and I was the wrench in their plans. I started digging. I pulled up the HOA's website, curious to see what they were so proud of, and what I found turned my stomach. Dozens of high-resolution photos showing their elite anglers club holding full-blown fishing tournaments on my lake. Tents, tables, BBQs, even a floating dock set up on the eastern shoreline, my shoreline. They'd been using my family's lake for years, advertising it as community waters, like it was a public pool or a shared parking lot. They were selling exclusivity club memberships, even advertising lakeside privileges to new home buyers as part of their HOA fees, all without my permission. Some of the posts went back 5 years. One even called Sullivan Lake the crown jewel of Maple Creek Estates. I wasn't even mad at first. I was amazed. The boldness, the entitlement. They didn't just use the lake. They branded it, owned it in their minds. And that was about to change. I called Emma Porter, my old college friend who'd gone from debating professors in dorm rooms to shutting down corporations in courtrooms, environmental law, water rights, land use. Basically, exactly the kind of person you want in your corner when a group of suburban tyrants thinks they can steal your land through paperwork and pretentious fishing clubs. "Let me get this straight," she said, after I laid it out. "They're trying to find you for using your own lake while they've been throwing parties on it for half a decade." I could hear the grin in her voice. "Jake, this is going to be fun." She told me to hold off on responding. "First, we gather receipts, camera footage, deeds, maps. Then go to war. Not with fists or lawsuits yet, but with facts, strategy, and patience. If you ever find yourself facing an HOA or local agency that's trying to twist rules to claim something that's rightfully yours, step 1 is don't react. Document, get a lawyer who's smarter than they are. Then let the truth do the talking." So I went to their next HOA meeting, quietly sat in the back of their marble-floored community center that looked like it had delusions of being a country club. Listened to them drone on about mailbox colors and lawn heights like they were passing national policy. Then came the moment Wilkins announcing an unauthorized boat on the lake. "We take pride in our community standards," he said, lips curled like he was sucking a lemon. I raised my hand. "Can I ask who owns the lake?" Silence. Murmurs. Richard Wilkins squirmed in his blazer. "It's managed by the HOA," he said. "Been that way for years." I smiled. "Right. But who owns it?" That smile of his got tight. He dodged. I pressed. He got flustered. People started whispering. The cracks were showing. And as I left, a man in a fishing vest approached me. "Gerald Thompson, president of the Elite Anglers Club. You should come to our tournament next weekend," he said, not realizing he just handed me the golden key to blow this whole thing wide open. But before I could plan my next move, they made theirs. The next morning, my boat was gone. Just gone in its place. Another notice, this time saying it had been impounded for non-compliance and could be reclaimed for $750. My hands shook, not with fear, but with restraint. I didn't call the sheriff. I didn't scream. I sat down, opened my laptop, and started pulling out every document my father and grandfather had ever stored. Because this wasn't about a Fine. This was a declaration of war. And if they wanted a war, they were going to lose it on every front. I spent the next 48 hours in what can only be described as strategic fury, setting up wireless motion-activated security cameras around the lake, especially on the eastern shoreline, where the HOA held their illegal fishing events, digging through every deed, survey map, and legal documents stored in a dusty old filing cabinet under my dad's desk, and verifying every boundary, line, water right, and land claim from 1953 to present day. Emma arrived with a binder the size of a cinder block. And we cross-referenced everything. Property lines, water usage laws, even original county zoning paperwork that clearly marked Sullivan Lake as private property, not part of Maple Creek estates, not subject to their HOA regulations, not shared, not community, but ours, every inch of it. The cameras picked up residents launching boats, hosting cookouts, and unloading coolers right on my land, all while I kept my distance, documenting everything with a calm rage that would have made my grandfather proud. Emma and I weren't just preparing a defense. We were building a trap, a flawless legal hammer that was going to fall the second they walked into it. And if you ever find yourself wronged on your own land, the lesson is simple. Don't shout. Don't fight. Document everything. Because the truth, when backed by receipts, doesn't just win, it demolishes. Tournament day came bright and loud. The kind of sunny morning that makes people overconfident, unaware that they're standing on the edge of their own downfall. From my cabin's back deck, I watched one car after another roll onto my land. Trucks, hauling boats, guys in matching vests, setting up pop-up tents and grilling stations. The whole thing looking like a Bass Pro Shop exploded. Banners read, 15th Annual Elite Anglers Championship. I counted over 40 people spread across my property like they owned it, like they had every right. And I knew then that this wasn't just arrogance. It was theft wrapped in tradition. Emma showed up dressed like a casual hiker, but her backpack was full of cameras, printed deeds, and the court injunction we just had approved the day before by a judge, who didn't even blink once he saw our evidence. The moment we spotted Richard Wilkins leading a group of investors along the shoreline, pointing at different spots and handing out brochures for a lakeside resort development that didn't exist. Emma whispered, "He's done," and we moved in, quietly like hunters walking up on prey that doesn't know it's been caught. If you're ever in a fight this big, let them build the stage themselves, then pull the curtain. We didn't shout. We didn't threaten. We walked down with the county sheriff by our side. He was holding the injunction. And when he raised his voice and told everyone present they were trespassing on private property and needed to vacate, immediately the silence hit like thunder. Gerald Thompson turned red, tried to argue, but Emma stepped forward, cool as ice, and held up the deed. This lake is privately owned, has never belonged to the HOA, and every event you've held here was unauthorized. You are trespassing. Richard Wilkins barged through the crowd like a bull, face purple, shouting nonsense about historical access rights and community stewardship, but the sheriff shut him down, handed him a copy of the injunction, and told him to leave or face arrest. The investors backed away like rats off a sinking ship. Residents stared at each other in confusion, and Gerald sputtered something about how this was a misunderstanding. "No," I said, calm but loud. "It's theft. Years of it." People started packing up, some grumbling, others apologizing. If you're watching this thinking it could never happen where you live, think again. And if it does happen, never meet arrogance with anger. meet it with ownership, with law, with truth so well. Don't they choke on it. By the next morning, the local paper had the story splashed on the front page. HOA caught lying about lake ownership. Reporter Sarah Lynn quoted Emma, quoted the judge, quoted residents who said they were promised lake access in exchange for high HOA fees. And suddenly, everyone who'd blindly followed Wilkins was asking hard questions. Where did all that money go? What else was the HOA hiding? And most importantly, what now? Richard didn't show up to the emergency meeting. Karen Mitchell, the vice president, tried to calm the room, but it was chaos. I stood up in the back, waited until it was quiet, and told them. I didn't blame the community, but I did blame the leadership. You've been lied to, I said, but you can still build something better. My grandfather always believed the lake should be shared with respect. So maybe it's time we figure out a new way forward. That moment shifted everything. The crowd that had once looked at me like a stranger now looked at me like an ally. If you're ever trying to fix something broken, don't just tear it down. Offer a better way. That's how you win people. That's how you lead. The fallout was brutal as it should have been. Richard Wilkins vanished, left town overnight, took down his social media, turned off his phone. Emma dug into his past and found gold. His real name was Richard Williams, a former Florida real estate agent who lost his license for almost the exact same scam. Falsifying property boundaries, selling access to land he didn't own, pocketing HOA fees for personal gain. Emails recovered by the county showed Karen Mitchell knew or at least suspected, and now both were facing civil and potentially criminal charges. The investors filed suit. The county launched an audit. Residents demanded a full refund of misused HOA funds, and suddenly the same people who ignored me when I first raised questions were asking me to help rebuild. That's when I made a decision. I wasn't just going to defend the lake. I was going to protect it forever. Together with Emma and a retired judge named Michael Davis, one of the few HOA members who actually cared about doing things right, we formed the Sullivan Lake Conservation Trust, a nonprofit that would manage fair, regulated access to the lake while keeping ownership private. We created permits for responsible fishing, set clear boundaries for public areas, and used the funds to pay for real conservation, not fantasy development projects. I reopened the lake to families, to kids learning to fish, just like my grandfather did. But this time, under written agreements that respected the land. The new HOA board, made up of residents who genuinely cared, backed it fully. That's what happens when you replace lies with leadership. The elite Anglers Club dissolved. Gerald moved away. The eastern shoreline where Wilkins planned to build condos and a marina was turned into a peaceful public park with a simple wooden pier and a bench facing the sunset. I paid for a small plaque that read, "Water is life, not a commodity," and every time I pass, I remember why we fought. Not for revenge, for restoration. The lake was healthier than it had been in years. Clearer water, more fish, less garbage. People didn't just use it now. They respected it. And that's the real victory. Not just proving someone wrong, but showing everyone else what right looks like. I repainted the old boat, fixed the motor, kept it rustic on purpose. Every morning, I take it out with a cup of black coffee and a fishing rod, just like my grandfather did, just like I used to as a kid. Sometimes Ray joins me. Sometimes I'm alone. But every time I sit out there on that water, I feel it. Weight of peace earned the hard way. Boat the HOA once called an eyesore became a symbol of everything they failed to understand. And now that boat is legend in the neighborhood. People wave at it, ask to take pictures with. The same HOA that tried to find me, for it now includes it in their welcome packet. Lake history and founding family traditions. Funny how things change when the truth comes out. So if you're watching this wondering what to do if someone comes after your land, your peace, your legacy, remember this. Don't panic. Don't give in. Do the work. Get the proof. Fight smart and never underestimate what one determined person can do when they know they're right. I didn't just win back a lake. I gave it a future. And in a world where the loudest voice often drowns out the honest one, sometimes the best thing you can do is say nothing, gather your truth, and let it roar when the time is right. Because the real legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you protect for the people who come next.